But just back to the issue of deportations specifically, do you support that mass deportations? Trump says in America that he wants mass deportations. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants are in Britain at the moment. Some estimates say the number could even be in, 1 million plus. So do you support deporting all of those people?
It's impossible to do. Literally impossible to do. But do we have to begin the process? Yes. Look, we're told that we can't send people back to Afghanistan, right? That's impossible. Well, Germany, 2 weeks ago, did. Germany sent a plane load of people back to Afghanistan. If the Germans can do it, I'm certainly sure we can.
But if the Americans can do it, for example, in America, they are able to deport a lot of people. I know they haven't under this administration, but Trump was able to. It's not totally impossible, is it? I mean, it should be an ambition, at least. Is it your ambition?
The mass deportations in America really happened under Eisenhower, where back in the 50s, he deported over 1 million people who'd come to America illegally. For us, at the moment, it's a political impossibility.
But is it your ambition?
No. I'm not going to get dragged down the route of mass deportations or anything like that. I think it's pretty clear there are a lot of people that have come who should not be given leave to remain. It's a heck of a job. It's a heck of a job. I just think with the backlogs, with all the problems we've got, we've got to go down the Tony Abbott route. We've got, the Australian Prime Minister who stopped this. We've absolutely got to be clear. We won't accept this. We're not going to put people in hotels. We have to start somewhere.
But these people who have come here, some of whom we don't know anything about, one terrible case recently, we saw Thomas Roberts, a 21-year-old, young British chap, being stabbed to death by someone who smuggled himself into the country in 2018. These people need to go, don't they? And by saying that you don't support, mass deportations...
If I say I support mass deportations, that's all anybody will talk about for the next 20 years. So it's pointless even going there.
So right? It's a rhetorical problem.
It's a political impossibility to deport hundreds of thousands of people. We simply can't do it. What I do think is the reason, particularly in France, the reason that Le Pen is going to win the presidency in 27 is the French population are making a link between some of the people coming into France and crime. And we're not even having that debate yet. And the government are actually willfully withholding the figures from us. Willfully withholding the figures. And it was bad under the Conservatives, but it's got worse under Labour. You can't even find out what groups have committed certain types of crime. And it's obvious that whilst loads of great people come to Britain, for the criminal gangs that want to come in, we're easy pickings. So I think, look, this issue of the population, of who's coming legally or illegally, this is going to be what decides British politics at the next general election. I have no doubt about that.
I want to talk about Islam and Winston Churchill to end the interview. So we'll bring the two things together to begin with. A quote from Churchill: "Individual Muslims may show splendid qualities. Thousands become the brave and loyal soldiers of the Queen. All know how to die, but the influence of the religion paralyzes the social development of those who follow it. No stronger retrograde force exists in the world. Far from being moribund, Mohammedanism is a militant and proselytizing faith." Do you agree with Mr. Churchill?
Well, Churchill fought against Mohammedanism. I mean, he charged with a lance at the Battle of Omdurman. He could have died. So he'd seen extremist Islam. He'd fought against it. And funny enough, when Hitler came to power, he was almost alone in the British establishment in saying, this guy's dangerous, when everybody else thought he was great. And how we forget, the press support for Hitler, etc. And because what Churchill saw in Nazism was the same kind of fanaticism he'd seen in Mohammedanism. I am convinced that the vast majority of British Muslims are worried about the growth of radical Islam. It's not an argument you hear very often, but I believe it absolutely to be true. I'm very worried about the number of 18 to 24-year-old young men who think jihad's acceptable, and I did talk about this over the course of the last few months. I'm deeply worried about that. But I know that the people that are really worried about that are the moderate law-abiding, tax-paying, peace-abiding Muslim majority that live in our country. So I think we have to take a rather different approach to this. And it's interesting because, my party chairman, Zia Yusuf, he is quite prepared to stand up and call this out. So, yes, extremist Islam is a very, very dangerous, very retrograde force. And look what it's done, since Kabul fell. Look at the way women are having to live in Iran. So these answers are all too obvious. Churchill was right about that. But I think if we sort of try and condemn the religion in its entirety, we're possibly building up enemies that we don't need to.
Since October the 7th, we've seen hate marches in Britain. We've seen the rise of lots of anti-Semitism, particularly from, a lot of Muslims, frankly. How do we integrate these people into Britain? And if they don't share our values, if they are anti-Semitic, if they are radical in this way, support jihad, for example, should we try and encourage them to leave?
Well, we have seen quite a lot of hate directed at Jews coming from radical Islamists. We've also got lots of white people called Jocasta, who are very middle class, who seem to hate Jews now as well. It's quite extraordinary. If you look at those marches, there's an awful lot of middle class white British people on those marches as well. I can't explain it. I literally can't explain it, but it's been going on for some time. Think about the comments that Ken Livingstone was making when he was mayor of London. I mean, there is something in the modern left that seems to hate Israel, not believe it has the right to exist. I can't explain all these things.
But if someone comes to Britain and they espouse radical, disgusting views that we would find abhorrent, shouldn't we encourage them to leave?
Oh, I think we should, but I doubt they will. I suspect that, the fact that you have a social security system and all the rest of it would discourage people from leaving. Look, I mean, I have no doubt that, this is going to be a major struggle that we're going to face for decades to come. It is a major, major, major problem. And that's why we need the peace-loving Muslim majority on our side. We have to try. We really desperately have to try.
Do you think that immigration represents a major threat to Britain from a demographic perspective? So in the last 20 years, the white British population has declined from 87% to 74%. Is that a concern of yours?
No, that's not a concern of mine. What is a concern of mine is, in many cases, the lack of integration.
Not concerned about demographic changes in Britain, but we have seen the fastest and most rapid decline of the white British population ever experienced in British history. This has happened in such a tiny, short period of time. And I think some people, many people in Britain are concerned about that. Majority cities that were once, 90% white British are now majority ethnic minority. Look at London, Leicester, Birmingham. So why isn't that a concern of yours?
Look, I'm very concerned that we have whole areas of our towns and cities that are unrecognisable as being English. But they're not unrecognisable as being English because of skin colour. They're unrecognisable because of culture. I mean, look, the truth is, I genuinely think that the British are the most open-minded, most accepting people, that you'd frankly find, I think, from any Western country. But it's the cultural impact of this. It is the societal impact of this. You look at our cities now. People often don't even know the names of their neighbours. It is the breakdown of communities. It's why kind of in the election campaign I said, family, community, country, these are the things that we're going to stand for in reform. So yes, of course, I'm deeply worried, but perhaps for different reasons than your question.
If Britain is made up of a majority of immigrants and their descendants, is it the same country?
Well, it's not the same country because you don't actually have anything in common. That's the problem, isn't it? That part of who we are is shaped by our history, is shaped by our family experiences, is shaped by the triumphs and tragedies that the country's been through in the last 100, 150 years. It's part of who we are. And if you finish up with large numbers of people with whom you have nothing in common, well, clearly it's going to be a very different place. And one that's going to struggle to have a proper collective sense of what matters.